and welcome back, Four-Eyed fans, to another Wednesday Start Sit show. I am your host once again at Fantasy Triage, Aaron Pags, filling in for our fearless leader, Jorge Edwards, who's doing some behind-the-scenes action for us today. Thanks, Jorge. I think he's hiding his face in shame after dropping Ryan Tannehill, the Tannehill lover himself. Those of us who are putting our faces out there for you today, of course, we've got Todd Barnes. What's up, Todd? At Todd1006. What's going on, brother?
Not much. Just ready to talk some football.
At Nate Markham, my co-host on our baseball pod and Cardinals fan, of course, Chiefs fan, hoping that Patrick Mahomes is not catching anything from any Patriot defensive backs.
Bubble boy for the next couple of days.
The bubble boy. And, we've seen him on TikTok. You've seen him on our shows before. We've got Ryan at the Fantasy Dude. What's up, Ryan?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So let's get into it, man. I mean, it's week 5. You would have thought that NFL players would have figured this out already, that there's a pandemic going on around the world, but apparently not. COVID strikes again, this time with the last year's Defensive Player of the Year, Patriots cornerback Devin McCourty. Nate, what's going on, man? Why have they not figured this out yet?
I'm going to say ignorance from some of the stories coming out is one of the things. If people are actually getting together to have parties or workout regimens, and then I get it, you got to work out. This is your livelihood. You want to stay at peak physical condition. But guess what? It's hard to work out if you have COVID and you can't play in a game.
Indeed. Ryan, what kind of season are we looking for down the road here? Now, what is your best case scenario? What's your worst case scenario? What do you think is going to happen here?
I mean, realistically, I honestly think we're either going to wind up playing, and it's bouncing on either side of the board here. I either think they're going to play an extended season to make up games, or we're going to get a shortened season because there's too many cases. Worst case scenario, it's canceled. They postpone the entire year. They call it a go. But I mean, money wise, I just don't see that happening. So
exactly.
I think the most realistic thing would be a shortened season, but I don't know how logistically they would sort that out. I'm assuming they had time to set it up. They're going to have these in plan B, plan C kind of situations. So they're $1 billion corporation. Let's hope.
Yeah, I mean, always, money first, of course. Yeah. Todd, brains obviously second to money here with the Titans. How dumb is this team? I mean, they all test positive for COVID and then get together to spread it around to other teammates. I mean,
when I saw that report, yeah, I mean, I saw stuff that they're going to get maybe have to forfeit the game this week. So, but yeah, when I saw the report that during all that was going on with that team, that they were on the field running drills and practicing and going through some stuff, that I was like, that just amazed me. So I would not be surprised if the NFL comes down pretty hard on them for that.
What did we do with our Titans and Bills this week? Playing I think it's a 1:00 start. NFL hasn't announced anything, right? So
I mean, obviously you have Josh Allen in your lineup, so you need to be prepared to have a backup ready to go just in case.
I have Allen everywhere, so I went and grabbed a backup. Usually it was Teddy Bridgewater I wound up picking up, but yeah.
Yeah, I was even looking at Daniel Jones even in a couple spots just in case.
Perfect segue. Let's dive right into it. Everyone's time's valuable, and of course, let's do it. What do we got at quarterback this week? Ryan, who's the quarterback that you were going to sit not named Josh Allen?
The one that I'm sitting not named Josh Allen. Oof. I mean, Carson Wentz, of course. What has he done? His offensive line isn't doing him any favors. He's got no receiving options. I mean, Ward kind of came out for the last couple weeks, but Ertz really isn't doing Ertz things. That'd be the one name I would throw out immediately.
Can't trust him, right?
Pittsburgh. Look at Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Especially in the matchup, you're about to say, against that Pittsburgh defense, they get at him. He has not shown anything of fantasy relevance this year, truly. And so I don't know. Is it time to drop him?
I would have dropped him after the 3rd week. So yeah, I'd rather have Minshew than Wentz right now.
Nate, you dropping Wentz?
Single
one quarterback league. One quarterback. Yep, one quarterback.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Time to move on. I talked about this last week. You waited on quarterback. You thought that you got Wentz to steal whatever round you got him in, 7, 8, wherever Wentz was going, probably 9, somewhere around there. And you're like, oh wow, I got to grab Carson Wentz in the 9th round. And now like I'm smarter than you, but the guy who is moving on from Carson Wentz is much smarter than you who are holding on to Carson Wentz. And so Ryan Fitzpatrick's out there, Joe Burrow's out there. These guys need to be in well, obviously not Fitzpatrick now with the Tua news.
Just play the matchups on a weekly basis. Yeah. You're better off.
Right. Yeah, you do one thing before you ever drop a Carson Wentz, anybody that has that name recognition, you throw them out to the 11 other owners just to see if all you have to do is get something better than what's on the waiver wire right now. Their 23rd player on their roster, if it's somebody that is not even significance, just depth, just a body that's better than the waiver wire, at least get some feelers, because you never know. Someone might actually have an affinity for. I mean, now that we don't all agree, clearly we're going to have some disagreements today, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, right, sure, maybe it's the handcuff, you know what I mean? Maybe it's the running back handcuff or something like that.
Every league has an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Todd, who are you sitting this week? Quarterback.
Tom Brady. He's 5 touchdown passes last week, so don't get tricked by that. I didn't think I can count. Takes 2 hands to count how many 1-yard touchdown passes he's had. So that's kind of scary that he's getting just 1-yard touchdown passes. But he plays the Bears this week. They've yet to allow a 300-yard passing game. Only Stafford week 1 got him for over 250. Right. And they've only allowed 2 touchdowns and 2 picks to quarterbacks over the last 3 weeks.
And Matt Ryan's even in there too, right? Like he
Matt Ryan's in there, Phillip Rivers, Daniel Jones.
Like they silenced some pretty decent quarterbacks over the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Okay, Ryan. So who are you starting over Brady?
Who am I starting over Brady? I'd rather start Kirk Cousins over Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Jamal
start
Adams out again, right? Jamal Adams. Out.
Seattle just gives up. They bleed points to the receivers in fantasy. So I'm all about Kirk Cousins. I mean, I'd even go Jones over him this week too. Dallas's defense is just Swiss cheese right now. So
right. Todd.
Yeah,
quarterback to start.
Cousins, Daniel Jones and
Daniel Jones, sure.
Teddy Bridgewater. Both you can probably find on your waiver wire. And both Dallas and Atlanta are just giving up crazy points to quarterbacks on the season. So if you need to fill in for one of these quarterbacks that are questionable to play this week, Daniel Jones and Teddy Bridgewater are viable options.
And Herbert's on a lot.
Since you guys have pretty much picked clean exactly everybody that I was going to think of.
Sorry.
Good. No,
that's great. Yeah, that means we're on the same page.
Exactly right. We're all in agreement. Yeah. Daniel Jones, the one added little piece to that is if you go back to 2018 season, Patrick Mahomes had a touchdown percentage of around 8.5. The Dallas defense is allowing to opposing quarterbacks about an 8.5 touchdown percentage, which if you could stream against Dallas every single week, you would have the legit easy quarterback one. Now you can't do that because they're going to play. But I think
Jarvis Landry had good quarterback play against Dallas.
Yes,
that is true. That is true. That was a bullet pass. By the way, let me just take the victory lap as we head into wide receivers here on the Odell breakout. Put him in the lineup, baby, and he makes it. He made it rain. So, all right, let's move on to the wide receivers. Of course, if we're playing Cousins, we're playing Thielen, we're playing Jefferson, right? Like we don't need to say those things against that.
I think you should start everyone in that game.
Yeah, anyone and everyone. Anything.
Honestly, even David Moore might probably score again.
Oh wow. Okay.
Maybe.
All right. Todd, who are you going to start for sure?
Wide receiver.
Yeah.
I'm going with basically the Giants. If you're struggling for depth at this point, and I mean, there's going to be games that we're not sure if they're going to play this week, but Slayton, Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, all those guys. Evan Ingram and Darius Slayton on the season have a combined 59 targets between the two. Wow. And so I'm just looking at that against Dallas, and they should just eat. And then Golden Tate's had 14 receptions the last 3 weeks, so he has a little PPR floor if you're really struggling. But yeah, Darius Slayton, I think last week I had him as a sit in my little matchup article, and this week he's going to be a must play.
Nate, are any of the Giants wide receivers sisters been scorned by any of the Dallas players?
Not that I know of. Not that they've come out and announced yet, but we will find out, I guess, soon enough. What a crazy scenario.
Right? That was wild, man. I mean,
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about that though. I haven't heard.
I was going to say,
word.
has that come down? We have suspension
Nothing.
or
Anything.
nothing?
So I mean, I don't know if they're just like, I mean, if it's one of those, I mean, I kind of understand. I mean,
Look
I'd
the
punch
other
him in
way,
the- I'd
right?
punch
Like
him in the
let it
face, too,
happen.
let it go.
He earned one. Yeah, he earned that.
There he
Hey!
is.
Dude.
There he is.
Did I miss the Gronkowski talk?
No,
Not yet.
yeah.
Save it
Okay.
up.
No, but we threw Brady under the bus.
I was
already.
going to say, yeah,
That's
you
all right.
missed the
Yeah, I
Brady
did do
hate
that.
and scorned lovers, and now David's here from Fantasy Go. What's up, David?
Not too much, man. Yourselves?
You just needed to sit out in the SoCal sun a little longer, right?
Just a little bit. Got stuck on the SoCal highways. They're actually busy now. People are on the road, but
Yeah,
it is what it is.
they must be going to those Titan workouts or something.
Pretty much. Or the
Darren
games
Waller
in
parties.
Florida.
Oh man!
Well,
All right, David. So we're teeing up wide receivers. Todd mentioned the Giants wide receivers this week. Who you got for a wide receiver that you really want to start?
I actually like Robbie Anderson this week. The new wide receiver one. To be honest, there in Carolina. So I think he's a great play. Surprisingly, especially in PPR, he's provided some pretty good value.
Yeah, and he was coached by Matt Rule at Temple, and he also was getting some work in with Teddy Bridgewater when he was with the Jets. So familiar with the quarterback, familiar with the coach. Maybe Robbie Anderson is one of these wide receivers that we overlooked coming into the season.
I definitely think so. He's got the same number of targets as DJ Moore going into the season, 32 so far. The fact is that Robbie Anderson has just done way more with him.
Adam Gase tricked us.
He did.
Adam Gase strikes
I think it's just
again.
Adam Gase.
Ryan, who are you sitting this week? Give me a wide receiver where you're like totally out.
I'm not just sitting him. I'm dropping him. It's AJ Green.
Oh yeah, we did that last week.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
AJ
yeah.
Green. And if I'm gonna pick another one, Jerry Judy.
Okay.
Yeah, that was mine.
Yeah, what's going on? You can't trust AJ Green, of course. We know this. now.
Yeah, the AJ Green thing, but Jerry Judy is just. I mean, even without Gilmore, I still think the fact that they don't really have many weapons. What's his face there? Noah Fant's not going to be most likely. He's going to be missing the game. The New England defense is pretty darn good, if you ask me. Who knows who's going to play quarterback for them and how long they're going to last in that game? I mean, it's just. Judy's definitely one I'm tossing off to the side.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Judy he should be drawing coverage against Jonathan Jones, and I already don't like the matchup against Bill Belichick, but Judy hasn't even played more than 75% of snaps yet on the year. And then I was looking at his yards. His yards are actually pretty good. He hasn't had a game under 55 yards yet. But he also hasn't had one over 62. So
He should have got picked last week. That big touchdown he got, the 50-yard.
yeah,
I mean, that was
lucky.
poor form from the DB, to be honest. So normally, any half decent DB would have picked that off, and he definitely wouldn't have got it. But it helped his stat line for sure.
Someone tweeted that he mossed the defensive back, and I was like, yeah, don't disrespect Randy Moss like
Yeah,
that.
that's really disrespectful to
Yeah.
Moss on that play. Wow. So Ryan, we put Judy on our bench. Who we put in our lineup?
I love both of the Seattle receivers this week, both DK and Lockett. I think they're against Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota's been having to play catch up and do. We like Kirk Cousins this week for the fact that he's going to have to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot because they have to keep up with Seattle. So I really love what Russell Wilson's been doing this season. He's been cooking. They're letting Russ cook. And I'm a big believer in DK, and I'm throwing Lockett in there because Russell always finds a way to get him involved. So,
David, after you dropped AJ Green, hopefully last week on all your teams, which I'm sure you did not, who are you throwing away?
I actually did
Week
drop
5.
AJ Green in a
Nice.
couple of leagues.
Nice.
But a guy that I'm fading, to be honest, is just on the same team. It's DJ Moore. I'm not really a believer in what he can do. I know it's an easy pick to go both Panthers, but especially where you drafted him, you're probably getting him in the 4th round. He's not living up to that expectation and really giving you maybe wide receiver 3-4 numbers. If you have to flex him, I understand because you might not have many more options, but I'm really not sold on DJ Moore, and I don't think he breaks out later in the year.
Yeah, definitely not living up to the price you paid for him for sure.
Do we think that it's a potential chance that, let's see, his career red zone target share is usually somewhere around 23%. This year it's 5%. He has the same amount of targets as Robbie Anderson. Right now he's running more routes than Robbie Anderson. he's having more uncatchable balls than Robbie Anderson. At some point, do we think there's maybe a little bit of a shift that maybe it starts to lean his way potentially?
More air yards.
The reason I say that is because DJ Moore is one that I think this week we can rely on, both him and Robbie Anderson, because Atlanta has given up consecutive weeks where they've allowed 2 top 36 wide receivers. So it's within the range of outcomes for Teddy Bridgewater to support two wide receivers. The problem is going to have to be in the touchdowns, which Bridgewater does not and has not done yet effectively, is pass the ball. He's 4 touchdowns on the season. So that's what's suppressing some of the overall value of DJ Moore initially. Ian Thomas, I don't want to get into him yet, but if he's out of the equation, I think Moore and Anderson both can have wide receiver top 24 production this week. But maybe I'm a DJ Moore truther, and I want to wish it into existence, and that's usually what I find when I do these narratives. Is I find the statistics that they back up what I think, and that's what I'd be stupid not to, right? I'm going to support something else. like if I wanted to find a person, Aaron, you may ask me who would I sit, and I would say, hey, how about a person who's been wide receiver 74 on the season, averaging 5.7 points per game. He has runs 26 routes at a 17% target share on the third lowest passing team. Those 3 things do not jive to a good wide receiver, and that's T.Y. Hilton. The last time he had 6 receptions was in week 7 of 2019.
Wow.
It's been that long.
It's been that long.
I heard a statistic today. He hasn't had a 100-yard game or something like that since Andrew Luck left.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not shocking. I mean,
that's not shocking at all.
I mean, it's shocking for T.Y. Hilton. It's just not shocking in hindsight.
I mean, here's a great lesson for the casual fan, right? Like, you may know his name and you may have remembered the T-Y, you may have remembered all that stuff, but that's been years and injuries ago, quarterbacks ago. Like, sometimes it's time to move on, and it's just time to move on from T.Y. Hilton. I think most, if not all of us, agree. Does anyone have a dissenting opinion on moving on from T.Y. Hilton?
No, Pascal might have scored more points than him this season.
It makes me upset that Paris Campbell couldn't stay healthy.
I agree with you guys, but here's the thing, and Ryan, block your ears. Have we fallen for the same trap with Julio Jones? I think we've fallen for the same trick with Julio Jones, because he is the same age as AJ Green. And we discussed it going into the season, is he's a 30-plus-year-old receiver. And we see it with all the great ones. They really do lose a step. And you're picking him in the late first, early second round in some leagues. So I don't know if we see Julio come back to Julio form.
I'm a diehard Julio guy.
Yeah,
and Julio, I faded him all draft. I targeted Ridley in all my drafts this year over Julio.
Julio did look good week 1, and then even in the first and beginning of the second quarter last game, he looked good before he came up hobbling with the hammy.
But when he pops in and out of injuries, and that's very common for Julio, he'll play a game, miss a game, play 2 games, miss a game. Those games he plays, they're never monster 150-yard, 2-touchdown games. They're 50 yards and maybe a touchdown if he finds the end zone.
So, wide receivers aren't the only players who catch passes. Obviously, some quarterbacks like the tight end. Todd, which tight ends do we like in week 5?
Definitely Hunter Henry. He has the Saints this week, and I talked about the Saints last week. I mentioned TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson found the end zone. They didn't really target him. I think he only had 1 or 2 catches, but he did find the end zone. But yeah, the Saints have given up 32 catches this season, 330 yards, and 5 touchdowns to tight ends. So Hunter Henry, and then they're banged up on wide receivers too. So Hunter Henry is definitely, I think he should have a big week against the Saints.
Yeah, Ryan, sometimes these tight ends, last year was Arizona, right? You just played tight ends against Arizona, and that paid off every single week. Seems like the Saints are that way. Tight ends kind of run, a very small route tree, right? They don't have a lot of different routes. So it seems like by mid-season, you can kind of tell which defenses you can attack with the tight end, and NFL teams catch on to this. Do you have a sneaky tight end that you want to play in week 5? Or?
I wouldn't say he's really all that sneaky, but the one guy, a lot of people drafted him decently, I would say, is Evan Ingram this week. The Giants don't really have much going for them in the way of offense in general, but Dallas doesn't have much going for them in the way of defense. So those two together, I think there's going to be some opportunity for him. So that's
And
definitely-
he's stayed healthy. He's on the field. He's like
exactly.
an elite
I think
athlete,
this is the healthiest he's been in his career
right? Yeah,
for the longest too.
absolutely. David, your tight end for week 5 that you want to play?
A guy going against the third worst against tight end in the league, Eric Ebron, is a great pick this week, especially in the red zone. Big Ben looks for him as his red zone threat. So I think, I don't think we expect massive yardage, but I think we can expect a touchdown or two.
May have been dropped last week with that forced bye, right? Like you might be able to grab him in deeper leagues and play him this week for sure.
Exactly.
Nate, always Mr. Negativity when it comes to tight end. Which one are we putting on our bench?
It's not true. I love my tight end. In fact,
He loves
we
him
have the
with
best
Cox.
tight end in the league playing on your team. I mean,
But-
it's really hard to hate tight ends when Travis Kelce you get to watch every single week.
I don't get Travis Kelce because I wasn't a heavy tight end early drafter. Fortunately, my heavy involvement is Jonnu Smith, who wanted to be my start this week, but I can't. It's really hard. So I'll just be the pessimist, half glass empty. And what has been empty is the scoring production of tight ends against the Carolina Panthers. One Hayden Hurst is one I'm going to avoid this week because Carolina has yet to still allow a top 12 tight end. They're giving up 5.5, 6 points to the tight end position. There's questions, of course, if Julio's out, where does the additional targets go to? I think that's more of the Zacchaeus maybe, or Ridley's going to get back in the, at least on the stat sheet, at least one catch. Ridley, please, one catch.
Can we quote you on this or
That Ridley will get one catch? Yes, I will make a bet that Ridley will get one catch this week.
How many
like
people were in leagues last year where they just needed 1 point out of Ridley
one catch? Wow.
and just
That was-
waiting?
It just killed me, man.
Tough to watch. I mean, poor Ryan. I mean, probably had him everywhere, right? You said you were
I
passing
got
up.
Ridley all over
Yeah.
the place. So yeah, it hurt. It cost me a couple pools.
Yeah. Something that's cost plenty of people pools and matchups every week are running backs. Man, running backs are just like falling everywhere. Like, who the heck do you start every single week? You think who's gonna go off, and they just put up a big fat dud. It seems like every season we get into the same predicament where we're like week 5, week 6, week 7, we're scrounging the waiver wire for the latest, greatest tight end who disappoints. David, give me a tight end a running back who's not going to disappoint me in week 5.
Well, I'll quickly tell you my tight end one first, and
Oh,
you're
okay.
only going to hear this once.
One time.
God, here we go.
It's
Here
Rob
comes the Gronk
Gronkowski.
talk.
It's always Rob
Knew it.
Gronkowski. I mean,
It
Gronk
is.
was going to be my
He's-
sit if I was
he's-
asked.
He's my sit until he can prove reliable. I can't
Wait,
play him.
whoa! Did you say?
Oh,
you-
wait.
No, I'm
wait,
saying
heel turn.
I'm saying
heel
he's
turn.
my sit. I'm not playing Rob Gronkowski this week. I'm
Wow.
not playing Rob
Turned your
Gronkowski.
back on AJ Green and
Oh,
Rob
look-
Gronkowski in 7 days.
He's, Gronk has put me in an abusive relationship.
Mhm.
He hurt me the first 2 weeks. Then he said, trust me, man, just give me one more chance.
How can you
And
not
then-
trust that face?
No.
His
Face of
CDs
an
are in his
angel.
car still. He
Ar-
can't leave. His CDs are in his car.
Exactly. He has to come pick up the stuff.
Arians just has different game plans, and I mean that's what good coaches do. One game he's a blocking tight end, the next he's a receiving. He's not a George Kittle, he's not Kelsey until he proves that he's getting consistent targets. So I'm not playing him. But the running back that I do think is going to be the overall number 1 running back this week. So it's not a crazy sneaky
Alvin
one.
Kamara. Oh,
Kareem Hunt. It's Kareem
Kareem
Hunt,
Hunt, there you go.
averaging
Okay.
5.9 yards per carry. He was running like a machine. He's looking like Kareem Hunt from 2017 back with the Chiefs. I think we're going to see a performance like that with really no one but Johnson. What's his first name? I always forget. His backup.
Dearness.
Dearness.
Dearness Johnson.
He went for $70 in Fab in one league.
Oh
Yeah, he
my
went
God.
for 42 in one of mine.
That's
Oh,
Kareem Hunt's
Crazy.
That's Kareem Hunt's backfield. It's going to be what we saw with Naeem Hines after he had 2 touchdowns in week 1 or 2 when Marlon Mack went down. People went crazy after Naeem Hines. People went crazy after Dearness Johnson. But that is absolutely Hunt's backfield. He's going to get 25-plus touches, end up as the overall number 1 running back of the week.
Todd, it was Jonathan Taylor's backfield in Indianapolis till it wasn't last week. What the heck went on there?
Yeah, I have no idea, but he has the Browns this week, and that's a tough matchup. The Browns have yet to allow a running back to go for over 55 yards, and so unless they involve him in the passing game, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And over the last 3 weeks, he's only received 4 targets. So Jonathan Taylor's probably a sit for me. And then even with his involvement, and that backfield's honestly been pretty questionable the entire season. It's kind of
weird.
It's not to the point where the Ravens are, or the even the 49ers are at some point.
It
But
looked good when Mac was back there, and then as soon as he went down, everything just went. Their whole game plan for the season looks like it just disappeared. So
It's bizarre because they are, I still believe, the number one offensive line, right?
Oh, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they're the number one defense too. Two of the biggest ingredients to have that superstar running back recipe, and it doesn't make sense. I don't get it, but
you could be a good real football team and not be good for fantasy, right? And so
True.
that happens with the New England backfield. That's happening now with the Baltimore backfield, and we shouldn't really be truly
Tampa,
surprised
you don't
now.
know what's
Tampa.
going on.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, are we worried about CEH? He came out week 1 and impressed everyone. Are we worried about his production? Because the last 3 weeks has not been that impressive.
I was going to ask Nate that exact question.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm that worried because it's been different aspects of his game that they've involved him in. That like week 1, everybody was talking about. I can't wait to see his involvement in the passing game. Week 1 passes, and everybody's blown away that he got 20 plus touches and over 100 yards. No passing work. Week 2 comes around, and then he gets a little bit of passing work and a little bit of running work. Week 3, he's even more heavily involved in the passing game, and then week 4, he's really didn't leave the field. So week 3 had me a little concerned because it was, remember that Darrell Williams and that the fumble in like the third quarter, I guess it was. And I'm thinking, now why would they give Darwin Thompson the ball here and not just continue to pound it with CEH? And so then this past game, there wasn't a ton of other shares going to any other running back. So I think I'm starting to see little pieces of this overall puzzle being put together that you want as your RB1 going forward. And let's remember, they've had one of the more difficult schedules for him. It's going to lighten up as well.
If you could get fantasy points for cool spin moves, he'd be the number 1 overall running back so far.
Per
True.
spin, yeah, 0.5 point per spin.
Right.
Truly, like running back 1, does that? I mean, I feel like we talk about this thing every year. Like, is running back 1 actually really exist outside of like Kamara, Zeke? Like, we're starting to stretch the running back 1 thing a little bit further. I think every year.
Every team's moved to a committee in some way.
Mm-hmm. Most have. I will agree.
Unless you have an elite back.
And so that makes choosing your running back every single week based on matchup and game plan much more important. Ryan, give the four-eyed fans somebody who they can confidently place in their lineup, because
Confidently placed in their lineup. I'm going to say Mike Davis. I mean, Mike Davis. The Falcons have been one of the worst teams against the receiving backs. They might be able to get to Teddy from time to time, but Davis has filled in admirably in CMC's absence, and I definitely would be playing him this week if I had him in my lineups anywhere.
I feel like for like 3 seasons now, we should have been picking on this Falcons defense, and every week there's like, I don't know what it is. People are timid, they're shy to play against the Falcons, but they give up yards and points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like,
And they put up
every
points, so
week.
you got to keep up with them, right?
you
So
got to keep up with them. Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like the Falcons are one of these underrated teams you should be attacking. Well, who are we putting on the bench for Mike Davis?
I'm sitting Henderson this week. We got Cam Akers coming back. It's not a matter of talent or matchup. I think Washington, you can definitely run the ball. It's just I don't know who the heck's going to be in the backfield. So that I'm sitting on Henderson this week. He didn't really do much last week. He had his week 2 and 3 breakouts when he had the opportunity because he was the guy. But with the other guys coming back, with Akers coming back in, I think they're going to mix him in more. I believe they want to try and make Akers the guy there. So I'm definitely sitting Henderson this week.
But as Todd tells us, they don't throw the ball to running backs, and so that makes the floor super scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super scary in the Rams backfield. David, you got somebody that you're tossing to side week 5?
Once again, not really a surprise, but Kenyon Drake. He's really disappointed many fantasy owners. I don't think Chase Edmonds takes over as the clear-cut number 1, but it's just going to be a backfield to avoid, to be completely honest. 2 running backs which aren't really giving barely flex value, if we're being frank.
I got Edmonds as a sleeper this week.
He might be all right. I just don't think they're going to give him the full workload if Drake is healthy. But it's tough to say with those guys. They were playing from behind a lot last week, so it was tricky to gauge. But yeah, Drake's definitely not living up to where you drafted him. Probably sometimes in the end of the first round, I was seeing him go. But
I want to know that walking boot he was wearing before the season. Was there more to that than what we actually were told?
It was preventative.
And is that
remember?
what's happening?
It was preventative. Remember, that's it.
Preventative, yeah, that was
preventative.
it.
And they promised us.
We always put boots on when we're just sprained our ankle.
Always. I have a boot on right now just in case.
Hey, I have one more question before we move on to IDP. So Todd Gurley this week, I mean, he had a good touch. I mean, actually, he didn't have too great of a week. He had 17 touches, 63 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, so it saved him. He's got the Panthers this week. If you
no, it doesn't save him. Todd Gurley scores touchdowns, man. That is part of his fantasy profile now,
but
right?
This week he has the Panthers, so I'm expecting him to get in the end zone. If you have Todd Gurley, are you trying to trade him after this week?
Ryan,
yeah, I'd try and trade him. I mean, I'm definitely going to want a running back. The way running back injuries are happening right now, I'm going to want to try and get a running back with it. But yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean.
Too hard to trade running backs, right? Like, especially
really
Todd Gurley. Like, he's been pretty
trading
consistent.
running backs is so sketchy right now. Every week there's a new name.
Value and real value are so off. People, I think if you asked 12 your other 11 league mates and said, where do you think Gurley ranks in amongst running backs? And my guess would
they would say
20s,
outside the top.
24.
They would say outside they say outside the top 12 for sure.
And what would that give you in return? That means you'd be getting less value. I think he's what he was last year. He's touchdown heavy, touchdown dependent, with about 60 yards a game, and the floor for his receptions are limited, and or ceiling is capped, unfortunately. But I still take him as my 2.
Yeah, a nose for the end zone for sure.
Yeah.
Nate, you got a nose for IDP, man. You've been killing it in the IDP. So
well, I try, and there's this week I'm looking at KJ Wright is one of the guys who I like this week to start. He filled in with Jamal Adams being out. Tackle volume was there. He was really moving all over too. He went to the left and the right side. So his involvement, obviously, when you play 100% of the snaps, you're going to get a lot more opportunity. I like Yannick Ngakoue this week, defensive line. Right now, he's, from weeks 2 through 4, he's a number 3 defensive lineman overall. So he's starting to get hot at the right time. If they could ever just get Danielle Hunter back, his value would be exponentially higher.
Sure.
Another guy I like is Anthony Walker. Out of Indianapolis. Darius Leonard left the game last week with a groin injury. I don't know the circumstances of that or what his availability is for this week. If he's out, Anthony Walker slid into that outside linebacker role as well. So he was playing in a different position, but still came up very valuable in that. So I look at that as a position where he could step in, get heavy workload, return high tackle volume as well. And
anybody on the other end, anybody you're getting rid of here?
All right,
not holding on to any.
This hurts me. I want to say sit to a person who I love. I loved Khalil Mack is unfortunately a sit this week. I wanted to put on my Jorge mask and play I'm sitting Ryan Tannehill, but I know that he would want to put on my mask and sit the Khalil Mack because right now he's limited. He has a little bit of a knee, he's banged up, he's sitting out of practices. His production has been next to nothing, 2.5 tackles for a loss, 1.5 sacks, and little to no tackle volume whatsoever. And just because you have a badass history doesn't mean you score points. That is my sit.
That is your sit. All right, guys. Of course, Four-Eyed fans, this was awesome. So happy to be on here with you guys. We thank David for coming on from Fantasy Go. You need to go check out his product over at fantasygo.com. Follow David on Twitter at FantasyGoNFL. Awesome follow. Of course, if you're on TikTok, who isn't? I guess Todd isn't. We found that out earlier. But when he does get his TikTok, he's going to be following Ryan at the Fantasy
First
Dude.
follow, baby.
First follow. Awesome content. Ryan's a fun follow out there on TikTok, so make sure you check him out. Nate, of course, dropping the IDP stuff. Todd dropping the wide receivers. The knowledge at Fantasy and Frames, the level that this that our website has come up to is a tribute to Jorge and these guys' hard work. So make sure you go over and check out all the articles all week long. Of course, all of our shows, the podcasts, go over to Fantasy Data's podcast network where Nate and Jorge have their Fantasy Playbook podcast. Content on content on content on content. So
new one this morning, I think, huh?
New one this morning. Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, for all the guys here, it was a beautiful night to say fantasy football lives. Peace, everybody.
Night.